You're also a university lecturer.
I am.
And am I right in thinking that you've written a PhD on breakdancing?
I have, yes.
Oh.
At this point, even my questions have questions. Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Fume. And of course, by me and my tea company, Lions Tea Exchange, and I have some very exciting news. There are officially 3 new limited edition flavors on the website for Christmas and as we head into the cooler months, and you can also get your hands on this beautiful wooden box. These boxes are officially available for pre-sale, and because I wanted to give you the chance to add all the flavors on offer, I am pre-sailing the 3 new flavors as well. You can get one of these lovely guys on the site right now. They will make a great gift, or just, a gift for yourself. You can fit 4 boxes of tea in here as well, and I have also put dividers in that you can actually remove. So if you're not interested in using this box to house your tea, you can take these little dividers right out and use the box for whatever it is that you want. It's made out of real wood. It's made here in the US of A by a US company who plants trees for every order placed. And I worked really hard on getting this design right because I want it to be something that you can gift for Christmas, because that's obviously coming up, or for a birthday or whatever you want, and actually have something that will last. The 3 new flavors are apple cider rooibos, peppermint white chocolate, which happens to be my personal favorite, and because you guys voted for it, bourbon barrel chai. And honestly, all of them are so freaking good. So go check out all of the cool new stuff, as well as the existing flavors that are already on the website. I will pop everything in the description box. I'm so excited to hear all of your feedback about all of these things, because I think it's pretty cool. So hopefully you will too. Now, for those of you who are new here, and for those of you who might have forgotten, because since I moved to America, my accent has died.
So, I really wanted to talk about something that's kind of been irritating me lately.
I'm actually Australian, born and bred, pure-blooded from the land down under, as people say. I'm sure people say that. So when my countrymen do things that I find embarrassing and dumb, I feel shame on a level that I can't quite articulate. Conversely, Steve Irwin.
I'll get bitten occasionally, every now and again, but it's never the animal's fault, it's always my fault.
The recent Paris Olympic Games were a poop show for all sorts of reasons. Fighting over the chromosomes of boxers, the medals themselves being terrible quality, no air conditioning in the Parisian heat. I hate it here. Gunn went viral for her breaking performance where she hopped around like a kangaroo. At least I think that's what this is. I actually watched a video this morning where someone had put together a side-by-side comparison of Ray Gunn and the Paralympics breaking team, and I think it speaks for itself. When men missing legs do better than you at a dance that requires having legs, you know you're in for a bad time. As expected, because the internet is mean and unkind, Gunn's performance was mocked aggressively. Even Jimmy Kimmel made fun of it on his show. But the thing that has got people very confused about this whole situation is how Gunn made it to the Olympics in the first place. Some have suggested her husband was a judge on the panel for her qualifying dance battle. Others have said that she created her own committee and put herself through to the Olympics. Both of which are not true, just by the way. But having now watched a bunch of Gunn's past interviews and past performances and looked into the path that led her to the Olympics, I think this situation is actually a bigger poopy show than any of us realized. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The weird backstory, the odd history that led this woman to the 2024 Olympic Games and made us all have a really weird time. But you know what isn't a weird time? Stopping your bad habit, which is why today's video is sponsored by Fume. Breathing air is a cool thing we do to stay alive. But what about when your bad habit makes you breathe in toxins and chemicals? Well, I'll tell you, it makes your lungs cry. Oh. But what if I told you there was a way to break your bad habit, to say goodbye to the toxins and breathe flavored air instead? Well, there is a way, and it's called Fume. Fume is this neato, award-winning little flavored air device designed to break any hand-to-mouth habit. And because your Fume is not a vape, it doesn't use vapor and has no heating components, you don't have to worry about ingesting gross chemicals. All you need to do is pick a flavored cord that you like, pop it in your Fume, and inhale yummo flavored air. And speaking of flavors, Fume has several to choose from, like sparkling grapefruit or white cranberry, for example. And don't forget, your Fume comes with moving parts and magnets so your hands can stay occupied while you break your bad habit. And best of all, Fume has been expanding its range, adding this sleek new Solano Fume and a Fume base, which is an all-new magnetic stand for your device. So if you too want to make your lungs smile, then head over to tryfume.com/Sydney or click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. And for a limited time, use code Sydney to get a free Fume base when you order a Journey Pack. In mid-August 2024, Rachel Gunn posted a video to Instagram responding to the torrent of memes, jokes, and blowback she received following her performance at the Olympic Games. She said that she was happy her dance had brought so much joy to so many people, but she didn't realize it would open the door to so much hate, which has been devastating for her. Lady, you did this in front of not only the entire internet, but the entire world. What do you expect? You cannot tell me that she didn't see this coming.
Well, I went out there and I had fun. I did take it very seriously. I worked my butt off preparing for the Olympics and I gave my all, truly.
This video followed on from a change.org petition, which has since been removed, where almost 50,000 people called for Gunn to be held accountable for her unethical conduct associated with her Olympic selection. The petition claimed that Gunn set up her own governing body, that she denied funding to other breaking groups, and her husband was part of the selection process. Unsurprisingly, the CEO of the Australian Olympic Committee, Matt Carroll, asked that change.org take down the petition. In a statement, he said, "It is disgraceful that these falsehoods concocted by an anonymous person can be published in this way. It amounts to bullying and harassment and is defamatory. We are demanding that it be removed from the site immediately."
The statement that she set up her own governing body is absolutely just ridiculous.
Don't get me wrong, it's like fair enough asking for a petition to be deleted from this website that's full of genuinely incorrect information. But my eyeballs were both bullied and harassed having to watch this in the first place. I also demand it be removed, but from my memory. The question here becomes, how does one lobotomize themselves? This also wasn't the first time that the Australian Olympic Committee, known as the AOC, not to be confused with the other AOC, had stepped in to defend Gunn. When the initial blow-up was occurring, another notable figure in the AOC, Anna Mears, you guys know I struggle with names, defended Gunn in an interview.
And Ray Gunn is an absolutely loved member of this Olympic team. She has represented the Olympic team, the Olympic spirit, with great enthusiasm, and I absolutely love her courage. I love her character, and I feel very disappointed for her that she has come under the attack that she has. Yes, Rachel didn't get a point yesterday, but she was there doing her best. It takes great courage to walk out into any sporting environment and try. Have a go. That's what we're encouraging our kids.
Now listen, I don't actually have a single problem with sporting bodies and sporting officials defending their athletes when they come under fire. I actually think that's how it should be across the board, especially if the criticism being directed towards an athlete is unfair or untrue or undeserved. You back your people. I think collectively we should be doing a lot more of that. But honestly, if we're going to be placing blame anywhere, I genuinely think there are better places to start than the Australian Olympic Committee. Because I actually believe that in some ways it might have actually been better if Gunn's husband was in fact a judge and she did in fact create her own governing body and then let herself win. That might have actually been better than the reality of what happened here. Because, you know, at least that's some diabolical smartness that I can get behind. But that's not what we're dealing with. This might come as a shock to some of you, but breaking, as it is officially known, was actually officially accepted into the 2018 Youth Olympic Games back in December 2016. So this is not that super new phenomenon. I mean, it's new, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that new. This seems to have come about as the result of the unholy union between the International Olympics Committee, known as the IOC, and the World Dance Sport Federation, WDSF, a dancing organization with a strong emphasis on ballroom dancing and not a ton of prior involvement in breaking. Dance sport generally is the competitive version of ballroom, and honestly, it's been like quite challenging for me to verify when breaking suddenly got added to the mix. Some have suggested that the WDSF saw breaking as a sneaky way to get into the Olympics in the first place, given that ballroom would just never qualify. Not to mention, in a 2023 press briefing, the IOC sports director, Kit McConnell, said that breaking fit very clearly with Paris's vision of a very youth-focused urban engagement. Whatever that means. I should also note that breaking won't be taking place at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, but this was decided long before our friend Ray Gunn stepped onto the dance floor. Much as it would have been hilarious if she had just single-handedly killed off the event. But you know, who's to say? Maybe it'll show up somewhere at some other Olympics. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I bet you anything it'll end up at the next Australian one. Like some super nerd revenge plot or something.
The break is a simple two-step. Alright, we're gonna go back to front now.
Wow, your hips are really elastic. One hurts.
Hi, I'm Renata Bliss, and I'm your freestyle dance teacher.
Why is my country like this? Anyway, all of this to say that because breaking had previously been a local cultural phenomenon dancing expression thing with no centralized ruling body, suddenly there was a need to develop a scoring system and a qualification process to even get to the Olympics. And for you dirty little naysayers out there, even Gunn herself said in one of her interviews that there is no official scoring system, point system that goes along with breaking. So do with that what you will.
Bit of a fun fact for you. There are actually no points in breaking. If you want to see how the judges thought I compared to my opponents, you can actually see the comparison percentages across the 5 criteria on Olympics.com. All the results are there.
I even had a hard time working out who governs what in Australia when it comes to all of this, given that Dance Sport Australia, which was founded in 1998 and is a member of the WDSF, is ballroom and Latin focused, and Ausbreak, or Ausbreaking, formerly called the Australian Breaking Association, was only founded in 2019, 3 years after the WDSF forced its way into the Olympics, and a year after breaking took place at the 2018 Youth Games. So, you know, there's that. From what I can tell, it was Dance Sport Australia who hosted the qualifier that got Gunn into the Olympics in the first place, and I think this is also backed up by the fact that Dance Sport Australia put out a statement discussing or I guess like shooting down some conspiracies and whatnot that had cropped up about this. So yeah, the whole thing is not super clear, at least not for an outsider. Anyway, funnily enough, Gunn actually wrote a research paper in 2023 where she herself critiqued the top-down decisions made by outside entities like the WDSF, noting how it impacts breakers and their experience and understanding of their scene. Yes, she is in fact treating her experience in this movement as a thing to study. Which is about as 2024 as it gets, but we'll come back to this. It sort of makes me think about those people who used to go off into the wilderness and then try to live with the gorillas and become one of the gorillas and be accepted by them, and then would come back and write about their findings. Except, in this case, I don't really know who benefits from knowing about gender studies and breakdancing. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think a lot of modern academia could just be summarized with, who asked for this? Not me. I can't even read. My point is, Australia didn't even really have some pre-existing umbrella organization for breaking until the WDSF came along. and then a few years later, in 2019, when Ozbreaking came into being. Meaning, the Olympic qualification process was not well established. So with this in mind, how did our mate Rachel even qualify? Well, simply, a qualifier was eventually organized called the Oceania Breaking Championships. The event had 15 female competitors, 13 Australians and 2 New Zealanders, and took place in Sydney. This is actually the very event that made me believe that nobody from my country can do this breaking thing at all, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know, I'm sure I'm gonna put some clips up on screen and you guys can judge for yourselves. It was here that Gunn went up against another woman called Molly Chapman in the finals, who you can see here battling in these clips. Gunn won with 1,000 points, Chapman lost with 750, whatever that means. I don't know how this is scored. Maybe it's just like how much you glaze over as you're watching it? I don't know. Importantly, a bunch of international judges were flown in to weigh in on this qualifier. They were from countries like Korea, Germany, the US, New Zealand, and so on. So after securing the win, Gunn was through to the Olympics and ready for her debut. All of my slightly mean jokes aside, and seriously, I think it's fair to say, and this is obviously just coming from the vantage point of a layman who has watched a lot of these videos at this point, I don't think that Rachel Gunn is the country's best, no matter how much the AOC wants to tell us otherwise. She was simply one of 15, only 15 candidates who somehow got selected for this random event that had been hand-fisted into the Paris Olympics so that the Paris organizers could feel cool and hip and urban, and the WDSF could maintain its relationship and future workings with the IOC. And I feel a little bad saying all of this because I'm sure those of you who are involved in the breakdancing community, maybe you have a different viewpoint of this, but watching it as an Australian and as a layman, as a non-dance person, I'm just like, ugh. Hi, call me Dream Crusher Sydney because that's what I'm doing today. Maybe we should make a thing out of this. You guys can email me the phone numbers of your friends and family, and then I will call them and crush their dreams on your behalf. Hi James, this is Sydney the Dream Crusher. Just wanted to phone and let you know that you won't be getting into medical school, because Asian is considered white adjacent. Unlike professional athletes who train their entire lives for something like this, she almost sort of just like showed up and then plopped around for a little bit and then eventually somehow won this almost randomly put together qualifier event. So do with that information what you will. Probably the most interesting thing to me about all of this is that Gunn isn't just some weirdo who walked in off of the streets and randomly got sent to the Olympics. Contrary to popular belief, and honestly, I don't know if this makes this situation better or worse, she's actually won a bunch of competitions and has been very highly rated in the Australian breaking community. According to her page on the Olympics website, Gunn was named the top-ranked B-girl, I guess that means breaker girl, breaking girl, something to that effect, by Ozbreak, formerly known as the Australian Breaking Association, in 2020 and 2021. She also represented Australia at the WDSF World Championship Breaking in Paris, France in 2021, and in Seoul, South Korea in 2022. She's also competed in a bunch of other tournaments and events, but she also competed in Madrid in 2023. Although at the World Championships event in 2021, she placed 42nd of 78, and at an event in 2022, she placed 73 out of 114. I couldn't be bothered finding the last one from Madrid, but I'm sure it was similarly middle of the road. I actually got really curious here and looked up the two ladies who won the events in 2021 and 2022, and well, I mean, you know, I think it kind of speaks for itself when you put all of this side by side, which I hope I'm doing right now. Sydney, editing Sydney, you better do it right now. Yes, past me, editing Sydney here. I am adding the clips in as you so desire. It's fine, I'm on top of it. Like, I'm no expert, but as a layman, I know who I'm putting my money on. Anyway, the point is, Gunn actually has a bunch of experience when it comes to breakdancing. In interviews, she even said that after meeting her now husband in 2008, he introduced her to the subculture. Speaking of her husband, let me show you his breakdancing too. It's a real treat. Copyrighted music, the music is copyrighted. I don't want to get a strike. I don't want YouTube to yell at me. Look at my dancing, the man is doing a dance, and this music is copyrighted. copyrighted, but not if I tell you that. So here at this juncture, I'm sure some of you are thinking, okay, so she showed up, she did her best, she went to the Olympics, and she tried really hard. So why was her performance so questionable? And I actually think I have the answer, or at least a partial answer, to that as well. Having now listened to a bunch of interviews with this woman, I think what's happened is that she has fully academia'd breakdancing.
When music starts, you can do a little bit of a walk. Take the stage.
I feel the anticipation.
Yeah. And then you can go into it.
Boom, bam, every time. Or Your hands are always like this.
And this is admittedly a little challenging for me to articulate, but just bear with me. The best way that I can describe this is from the perspective of playing piano, given that I've played piano my whole life and consider myself reasonably musical, and I have never done dance and am not good at dancing at all. Some people are without a doubt drawn to piano because they have natural skill, because the instrument makes sense to them on some level that it doesn't make sense to other people. And so even in their unrefined, untrained state, they're still really good at it in a way, once again, that other people are not. There's this other group of people who actually crop up quite a lot when it comes to this instrument, who just don't have that and are not that. And their way of learning the instrument comes down to analyzing it and assessing it and getting everything 100% of the time in this robotic, hyper-trained, unnatural kind of way. And don't get me wrong, you can be the latter and still be quite skilled, and sometimes even more technically skilled than the first kind of person, the natural inclination kind of person. But sometimes that lack of inherent skill, and I am willing to bet that this applies way more to dancing than it does to piano playing, that lack of inherent skill and this obsession with the technicalities and understanding what underpins this specific thing just doesn't pan out. And unfortunately, I genuinely think that's the case for our mate Rachel. I know to some of you that's going to sound a little unkind and a little uncharitable, but frankly, I think this assessment is fair. I mean, even listen to the way that she describes breakdancing herself.
I think what people should be looking for is, particularly when the dancer comes out, how are they dancing to the music? The next thing that they could look for is their shapes, their angles. That helps you get a sense of the clarity of the movement. If there's anything different they're seeing more with one breaker than with other breakers, so that might help to see the originality. And any kind of conversation that might be happening between the dancers.
Again, I've played piano my whole life, have done a bunch of studying and exams for music theory, actually achieved a reasonably high level of it, and I don't even talk about it in a way that's like I'm about to dissect a frog on a table. With music and with many of the creative fields, either you get it or you don't. And if you don't, well, you end up with this. So with this in mind, it sort of makes sense why Gunn has published a bunch of research papers and studies, if we can call them that, on the topic of breaking and culture. And she is extremely proud of this fact.
Now, I've got to congratulate you too on smashing the stereotype of a university professor as well at the same time. How do you combine the two?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm totally smashing both stereotypes really, aren't I? But it's nice to be able to push myself in different ways, and I feel really fortunate that I've had both of those opportunities. Yeah.
At least your profession is sort of related to your dancing. So you're a professor in breaking and a competitor. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it does. I get to research breaking. I get to talk to people about breaking. I get to read papers on breaking. My whole life is about breaking. So I feel really fortunate that I can go that deep into my sport, into my dance.
When asked about it on the Australian show The Project, Gunn admitted that she wrote a thesis about the dance and looked at it from a gender studies perspective.
You're also a university lecturer.
I am.
And am I right in thinking that you've written a PhD on breakdancing?
I have, yes.
What was the...
What was the thesis?
What did you...
So my thesis was in cultural studies, and I was looking at
gender politics in the breaking scene, because I think it's such an interesting space. It was really male-dominated. It's such a masculine dance form, and coming from really female-dominated dance styles, it was really interesting noticing the changes to my body, my way of moving, people's reactions to me, you know, and the potential for me to do different kinds of movement on the dance floor, because most of my battles that I did were opens. They weren't against other women. They were with and against other men. So that was what my thesis was exploring.
The thesis in question is titled Deterritorializing Gender in Sydney's Breakdancing Scene, a B-girl's experience of b-boying. Guys, I don't think this is normal. An abstract from her thesis reads, "This thesis critically interrogates how masculinist practices of breakdancing offers a site for the transgression of gendered norms. Drawing on my own experiences as a female within the male-dominated breakdancing scene in Sydney, first as a spectator, then as an active crew member, this thesis questions why so few female participants engage in this creative space and how breakdancing might be the space to displace and to deterritorialize gender." This might be worse than the Olympics performance itself. I haven't said it in a while, but this is some good old academic flim-flam. Frankly, this makes sense, given that Gunn said in another interview that she would go into bathrooms and cry, feeling freaked out trying to do what her then boyfriend, now husband, taught her in front of other men. She said, "The scene is dominated by guys, and no matter how many training sessions I went to in those days, it was always filled with men. I think that's changing, but it's still male-dominated. Sam, her husband, tried to teach me some moves, and I initially found it really difficult because I had a background in dance choreography where the whole class learns the same routine." But it isn't just this one thesis that Gunn has written about this topic. Given that she is a lecturer at Sydney's Macquarie University and works in academia, of course she's written other pieces. She's brought us some great hits such as the Australian breaking scene and the Olympic Games, the possibilities and politics of sportification, dance and protest, the ethics of living a double life, rethinking ownership, authenticity, and identity in hip-hop culture, and my personal favorite, Where Are the B-Girls At? This was for the Journal of Feminist Media Studies, because of course it was. Like many people have already identified, I do also think that Gunn's performance probably will have something to do with making some overall broader point about the uniformity and sportification of this cultural phenomenon, which will probably more than likely show up in her future research papers and articles. If I'm being honest, I think this situation is incredibly unfortunate. On the one hand, and obviously positively, a bunch of people found this genuinely hilarious. But on the other side of things, there is some legitimate criticism around Gunn taking an opportunity away from somebody who is considerably more talented and just a better representation of this dance style. I can also understand the people who feel like she's made a mockery of their dance and this discipline and this cultural phenomenon. After looking into this for a number of days, I think probably one of the most unfortunate components here is that even though she's using all of this as an opportunity for pseudo-intellectual academic study, I genuinely think that Gunn actually likes and cares about breakdancing. Like, she has a genuine vested interest in it. The trouble is that caring does not a skill set make. And I will say, I do know that it's unfair to assign an entire country's shame and embarrassment to one human being and their actions. But I just found this questionable, and I really hope that, you know, people don't associate Australia with this too much. We might be a bit of a goofy population sometimes, a funny population, but maybe not like this. On the bright side, Aussies have a really good sense of humor, and lots of things that we typically find embarrassing or silly or whatever get kind of canonized back home, so it really wouldn't surprise me if this somehow gets integrated into Australian culture in some way, like we've done with a bunch of other things, like Lock It In, Eddie, or the thing about Jan. What's the sentence about Jan? Not happy, Jan! Not happy, Jan! I don't know. Aussies are just really good at adopting people's failures and then turning them into something positive. So that's good. I guess. Ultimately, I'm judging all of this as a non-dancing human being, as somebody who doesn't participate in dance, so if you are a dancer, and especially if you are a breakdancer and you have a different take of all of this, I'm actually really curious to hear that. In the end, Rachel Gunn's road to the Olympics, in my opinion, was a pretty odd and questionable one. But it goes to show that just because you study something on an academic level doesn't mean that you're going to be any good at it in practice. Now, before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out Fume using the link in the description. Scan the QR code on screen, go and check out their journey pack and their range of very cool and interesting products. Now, I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Is it actually embarrassing that Rachel Gunn showed up and did this on an international stage? Do you think that it's right that Australians and other people feel secondhand embarrassment here? Do you think that she showed up and did her best and tried her hardest and that's actually what counts? What do you think of the response from the public, people making things up about this? Is that wrong? Is that muddying the waters and making this a bigger deal than it actually is? What do you make of the WDSF and the way that this whole entire thing came about with breakdancing at the Olympic Games? What do you think of the response from the AOC and the IOC? Are they fair, not fair? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. You know I like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of this kind of content and more of me, feel free to subscribe, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment, because I do read the majority of your comments and I always like hearing your feedback. Of course, if you have any video suggestions, feel free to let me know. I have a running list of those and I am trying to get to them more and more. There's a lot, you know, it is what it is. And always stay safe and well, my pretty little chicken people, and I will see you wonderful humans in the next video.